sebagai produk spesialis untuk security products termasuk Netscope. Hari ini kita akan mengadakan webinar untuk inspirasi security dengan topik perlindungan komprehensif platform cloud service, yaitu teknologi next gen secure web gateway dan juga cloud access security broker. Kenapa kita perlu adanya teknologi seperti ini di organisasi? Salah satunya karena kita lihat adanya tren untuk work from home, sehingga kalau kita flashback saat kita bekerja di kantor, mungkin akan kita dilindungi oleh perimeter security yang berada di kantor. Contohnya mungkin ada firewall, ada IPS, ada web proxy yang berupa mungkin appliance, dan juga saat ini kita sudah banyak menggunakan aplikasi cloud, sebut saja Office 365, termasuk Microsoft Teams, dan juga kita banyak juga menggunakan cloud apps lainnya, seperti itu. Jadi kita mungkin banyak yang belum familiar dengan teknologi ini, Cloud Access Security Broker. Hari ini kita akan dibantu oleh speaker kita, yaitu Melvin Tan. Beliau merupakan cloud engineer dari Netscope. Sebelum itu saya bacakan dulu untuk rules webinar kali ini. Kita perlu menonaktifkan mic dan juga kamera selama webinar berlangsung, menyampaikan pertanyaan melalui kolom chat, dan bekerja sama menjaga ketertiban selama webinar berlangsung. Adapun untuk rundown webinar hari ini adalah webinar akan dimulai dari sesi presentasi, dan juga ada demo dari Netscope, tampilannya seperti apa, dan juga nanti akan ada use case-nya seperti apa. Dan juga nanti akan ada quiz yang bagi dua pemenang dengan skor tertinggi akan mendapatkan shopping voucher dari MII. Seperti itu. So untuk webinar ini juga akan diadakan dalam bahasa Inggris. So Melvin Tan, without further ado, I'll give you the screen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everybody for joining. All right, so my name is Melvin. So I'm the cloud security engineer for Netscope. Right, so I take care of the ASEAN region, and I think today's webinar is to introduce you to what Netscope is actually doing and how can we actually help you and your organization to safely secure your cloud. Right. So just a little bit introduction of who we are. Right. So we are founded in 2012. So we started off as CASB inline functionality 8 years ago, and then we extended our platform to today with security for public cloud, right? For your AWS, Azure, GCP, as well as next generation secure web gateway, which basically do your URL content filtering and controls, as well as private access, right? So you might have heard the term zero trust network access, right? So it's essentially like application-based VPN, right? But without the complexity of having a traditional VPN in place, right? So I will show it in my demo later, right? For all this functionality. Right. So Netscope itself, we help about 30% of Fortune 100 companies today to secure their journey to the cloud. So if you are using Office 365, G Suite, Slack, Workplace by Facebook, Salesforce, or any other cloud applications, right? We are able to help you to gain visibility on what the employees are actually doing, what files they're uploading, do they contain sensitive information, right? As well as any other cloud application that they are using, right? So we can actually help you to gain visibility and put some control on them, right? So Netscope being a security cloud, right? We help to process our customer data, right? So we process about 15 billion transactions per day, and we help our customers to enable thousands of applications in the organization. In a lot of organizations, you might only know a handful of cloud applications that employees are using, but I can assure you that there are more, right? Because it's up to individual, right, to use cloud storages for departmental basis or even business units, right? So maybe HR needs to use certain cloud application, so they subscribe on their own, right? Or as an employee, I prefer to use maybe Dropbox, right, as compared to OneDrive, like the company offers, right? Or I need to collaborate with another business partner that shared files with me via Dropbox, right? So how do I actually gain the visibility and have some control over that as well? So Netscope, we are the Magic Quadrant leader for Gartner in the CASB space for the past 3 years since it was started as well. So now let's talk about a little bit on history, right? So what is happening today versus what is happening in the past. So many years ago, right, when network first started, right, typically a lot of people in the offices are using desktop. There's no much of laptops or BYOD in the past, right? And a lot of applications are being hosted on premise in the data center. Your applications, your intranet, your file storage service, right? But as time goes by, right, of course, the explosion of the World Wide Web, right, probably 15 to 18 years ago, becomes a lot of organizations will need to basically put in certain security in place, right? Because I do not want my desktops in the office to get hacked. I do not want my employees to go to pornography websites or gambling websites or any websites that contains malicious URL, for example. Then you put in firewall, right, to control port-based control. And then you put in a secure web gateway to basically do URL filtering, right? So next, what happened is that with the evolution of laptops, right, people are more mobile, and how organization actually enable those remote working users to connect back to the application that you host on-prem, right? So with the introduction of VPN, which means that the laptops that are roaming, they will have a full tunnel back to the on-premise location, and then the filtering will be done there, right? Any web traffic will go to a secure web gateway before it goes out, and any internet application can be accessed via this VPN. I believe maybe some of the organizations today are still doing it this way, right? But this way is not effective, right, in the long run. Why? Because I think we can see that for this COVID-19 crisis, a lot of employees are starting to work outside of office, right? By doing a full tunnel VPN back to on-prem, right, it will actually increase operational costs as well as investment costs, right? Because now you need to maybe buy a bigger VPN box or even upgrade your bandwidth or even your network security appliances to support the influx of the amount of remote machines connecting back, right? Then next
Hi, Melvin.
yes.
Are you still in the first slide? Because it won't change.
No, I actually moved on already. Can you see my slides? I'm sharing the PowerPoint actually.
Oh yeah, so it's it changed now.
Oh, okay, can, right. So yeah, so basically, when the organization feels that, oh, now if I full tunnel back all the traffic, it actually consumes a lot of my resources, right? So what I do now is I do split tunneling, right? So when you are on laptops or even your mobile devices, right, I will allow you to go to internet direct, right? You don't need to come back to HQ, but for internet application, you still come back to HQ, right? And then the next phase of evolution is the explosion of cloud applications, right? So cloud applications like Microsoft Office 365, G Suite, Salesforce, or any other cloud application out there, right? And then this poses another problem, right? Because your legacy secure gateway and firewall is not able to decode or see the traffic within these cloud applications. Because the firewall and the secure web gateway are actually built to analyze traffic that is built on all types of HTML or internet protocols, right? The cloud application of today actually uses newer protocols, right, like JSON's APIs, which the legacy network security appliance are not able to give you the visibility and control, right? So what happens next is that now you introduce another product, right, called CASB, Cloud Access Security Broker, which is able to give you the visibility of the cloud applications and the usage. So what if there's a solution to all of this, right? To have a single gateway or single conduit to basically give you visibility on all network related outbound resources, right? Going to cloud applications, websites, internal data centers, internal applications hosted on private clouds, right? Give you visibility on the firewall ports that the users are actually using. So this will basically become like a central gateway, right, or a platform to basically deal and help you with all things outbound or internet related, right, as well as giving you accelerated performance and security controls, right? So security controls like DLP or like threat prevention kind of controls. So Netscope itself, we have a module called Next Generation Secure Web Gateway. So what it does is it combines the CASB control together with the legacy Secure Web Gateway control, as well as DLP, right? So many of us are familiar with network or endpoint DLP, but that is no longer 100% effective at what they are supposed to do now, right, with the explosion of cloud application. So you need something like a cloud-based DLP to actually help you or enhance the detection, right? So of course, in the next gen secure web gateway, we do threat detection, right, as well. So a little bit more context, right? A lot of web traffic today, right, are basically encrypted, which means they are SSL, right, of 4.4 port 443. And if you do not have a way today to basically decrypt this SSL traffic, then it will become an issue, right? Because you do not have visibility if you do not decrypt them. And you need, if you're still using or rely on on-premise solution, you need a relatively huge box, right, or powerful hardware to do SSL decryption, right? So going towards a SaaS method helps because cloud gateway or cloud platform like Netscope itself, basically it doesn't limit you to the amount of traffic that needs to be decrypted, right? As well as when we decrypt the traffic, we can actually able to tell you the context within the traffic itself, right? Because Netscope, we are built to basically analyze the new language of the internet, which is on API and JSON, right? And a lot of the web traffic that a lot of us use today, right, are no longer the traditional web or websites or web pages, right? That only contribute about 10%, right, of the internet web traffic that you consume today. 85% of them are basically SaaS traffic, right? So SaaS traffic like your cloud storages, collaboration applications like Slack, Trello, or even note-taking application like Evernote, Microsoft OneNote, etc. So LinkedIn, forums, all these are still considered cloud or SaaS application, right? Because it allows the user a way to interact with it, right? It allows the user to upload files. It allows the user to create content within that SaaS application itself, right? So if I'm able to create content on the SaaS application, your network devices on security devices are blind to what I create on those SaaS applications, as well as your endpoint security controls, right? Endpoint DLP or any other security products you have on the endpoint, right? And lastly, 5% of the traffic goes to public clouds, right? So a lot of applications today, right? Some of their resources are actually hosted on public clouds, right? Your S3 buckets, resources using AWS, or even your organization yourself actually uses public clouds, right? To basically offload some of your on-premise applications to the cloud, right? And I think as we all aware, a lot of phishing or a lot of malware threats today comes from the cloud, or we call it cloud delivered threats, right? Phishing sites are relatively the phishing hackers are really clever today, right? Because in the past they might host it on a standard URL that we can actually, or web proxy is able to categorize as a phishing site, but they can be hosted on Google Forms to basically ask you to key in certain information, right? And a lot of malware today are also being hosted on public legitimate cloud, right? like your Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, S3 bucket, right? So these are considered like legitimate traffic, right, to a security appliance, right? But then a lot of malware are also being hosted there, right? So a new control surface is emerging, right? So on what you see on the left, right, is your legacy line of defense, right, that you are still using, but I will not say they are totally redundant, but the effectiveness are fading, right? So network security perimeter, right, it is only effective if you are in office, right? You are in that network. If you're outside the network, unless you VPN all the traffic back, it's actually quite redundant, right? When I'm going direct to the internet from my managed device at home, right? Endpoint security basically it still helps in a way, right? Like EDR, but then it's not that effective today anymore, right? Especially like endpoint DLP, right? Because there are only certain activities that they analyze, right? But the cloud itself allows you to do more, right? And of course, application security, right? So in today's context, what you should take note of, right, is these three main things, right? The data, right? So where is your data? Where is your data going to, right? How the users interact with the data. Identity, right? Who is the one? Is he the right person or the correct person that access certain resource, right, in your OneDrive, right, in on-premise applications, right? So these are the things that these are the two top things that you need to consider, right, as well as the usage of applications, right? So what are the applications that your employees are using? Are they accessing risky applications, right? How do we know that the applications that they are accessing is the data is not hosted maybe outside of APAC, right? Are the data hosted in Russia, even in China, Middle Eastern countries, or any other countries, right? So what is the risk that the organization is dealing with when the users access these applications, right? So do you want to put a stop to them, or do you want to actually put in certain controls, or we can actually coach the users, right, and tell them that, hey, you shouldn't use this kind of application. We have OneDrive for you to use. You should use OneDrive, right? So these are the things that we need to take note of, right, and basically put certain visibility and control on these three main stuff, right? So of course, organizations around the world, right, feel that there's a driving need to modernize security approach, right? So we need to basically base on risk, right? What's the risk appetite organization has? How can we actually handle certain risks in organization? How do we minimize the risk as well, right? And and of course, we need to follow a data-centric security program, right? So we need to identify what are the data that is important to the organization, where is it going to, right? And how the users are interacting with the data on the cloud. And of course, work from anywhere, right? And it's very common today. How do we provide the same set of security controls no matter where the user is, right? Whether they're working in office, working at home, working in another country, or working at Starbucks or anywhere. We want to provide the same sets of security control as well as performance wherever the user is working from, right? And also apply real-time granular controls, right, across the web channel, right? Be it whether they are going to a gambling website, be it whether they are going to access applications, how can we actually apply real-time granular controls to it? And of course, we want to actually let them direct to internet access, right? If you do backhauling or full tunnel back to office, then it actually consumes a lot of resources at latency. Routing is a nightmare, right? So operational wise, it's not ideal. So how can we actually let the users that are working remotely direct to internet access, but we are sacrificing performance as well as security controls, right? And of course, a way to consolidate and modernize security controls, right? So if let's say you have a VPN solution, you have a CASB solution, you have a secure web gateway solution, you have a firewall, you have 4 different consoles to deal with, right? In terms of operationally. So if you can consolidate all this into a single platform, right, then it's easy for operation to basically manage it, right, as well as reporting as well, right? And of course, not to say the ease of deployment, right? So what Netscope wants to help you to do is that we want to help to protect your data, right, from accidents, insider threats, and of course third-party risks. We want to give the visibility to see what application the user is using, who is the user, and how are they using the application. And of course, we can help you to consolidate, integrate, and automate. And as we go along, we will always help you to provide continuous real-time risk management. And the goal here is that to help you to simplify and modernize security programs and accelerate your zero trust journey, right? Or the cloud transformation journey. So Netscope is basically built on top of what we call a SASE architecture. So what is SASE, right? So SASE is basically stands for Secure Access Service Edge, right? So it's a term that came out from Gartner, and this is the future, right? That a lot of cloud security vendors actually are building towards too, right? And SASE architecture consists of two major portions: security as a service and network as a service, right? So Netscope actually plays in part of security as a service as well as part of network as a service as well, right? And how we control, or what is the use case, business use case here is that I want to analyze my unmanaged users, right? That goes to my applications that are host on premise, right? That's one. I want to basically analyze BYOD employees that's using BYOD machines to access my corporate Office 365, for example, right? And this can be done clientless through the IDP. And the other business use case is that I want to basically protect my users from a managed device working from anywhere, right? So be it whether they're in office, at home, I want to govern or protect them with the same set of security controls. And of course, in Office, right? So of course, Office network itself, anything that goes out to the internet, I want to have visibility as well as I want to have control. So the Netscope Security Cloud itself basically give you performance, security controls, right? Threat prevention, DLP, when they actually go to any websites, any SaaS application, private applications, public cloud, as well as data centers, right? So basically our DLP is an enterprise class DLP, right? So it can be applied to websites, private applications, and of course, cloud applications as well. And in our DLP engine itself, we have data identifiers, right? We have predefined policies, compliance template. We have the exact matching, fingerprinting, right? Similarity matching. One very key functionality that we have over the others, right, is basically our machine learning powered classification. So take for example, right, if let's say you are dealing with credit cards and maybe passports, right, in the organization. So how can we actually identify if anybody actually upload any images of credit cards or images of passports, right, or images of resumes, for example? So in the past, how you're able to control that is that you need to basically do some data classification on those files. That's one. Number two, you need to maybe do fingerprinting on those files, right? But it's a hassle to do it, right? And it's not possible, humanly possible or machine possible to basically classify every files, right? And if I were to basically screenshot a desktop, right, and try to send it out, how do I detect that with traditional DLP, right? Basically, you can't. So for Netscope itself, our machine learning power classification is able to identify those images, right, and put a stop to that, right, without any fingerprinting and without any classification, right. So I show you how it works in my demo later, right. So basically, the DLP engine can be applied to basically any cloud application, any websites, a group of users, a particular user, or even the whole organization, right. So a typical secure web gateway, right? So what it does, what the information that a typical secure web gateway can give you, right, is obviously the user itself, right, from which department or different or which group, which device is coming out from, which UI category, what is the activity? Usually is browsing, viewing, or uploading or downloading. They can do threat analysis, of course. They can do DL. Some of them can do DLP, but most of them need to ICAP to a DLP engine, right? It's separate. And of course, the policy action usually is to allow or block, right? There's not much other options that you can choose, right? The legacy secure gateway. But what Netscope can help to provide is that even rich context, right? To make your life easier, right? When you do reporting, as well as when you do investigation, right? We can give you who is the user is using the machine. That's not all. We can also tell you what is the account that he actually used to log into G Suite, for example, right? He can be logging in as patsmith@netscope.com, but he logging into Gmail as maybe abc@gmail.com, right? We are able to tell you whether it's coming in from managed or unmanaged device, the SaaS application that he is using, whether that SaaS application is a managed or non-managed SaaS application, whether the account that he used to log in is actually a company corporate account or a personal account, whether the application is trying to access is actually a high risk application, right? So we have this risk categorization of applications in our platform itself. Of course, URL categories, activity control. So activity control basically is more than view, upload, download, right? We can actually control sharing, creating, editing, posting, whatever the cloud application allows to do, we can actually control it. We have UEBA inbuilt into the platform. Of course, we can do threat prevention in the platform as well as sandboxing. The cloud DLP is inbuilt into the same platform, right? And of course, the policy action can be contextual, which means that we do not only do allow and blocking, we can do coaching, get them to put in justification, we can encrypt, we can legal hold, we can quarantine, etc. Right? So there are more things you can do, more information you can see, right? And all this can be configured very, very easily, right? Using our policy engine. So all of this platform and functionality is actually backed by our New Age network. So basically, our New Age network, because we are sort of a SaaS provider, right? So we invested about 100 million USD last year to build the world's largest, highest performing security private cloud, right? We are carrier class network, and our architecture is SASE ready to deliver Netscope service at the edge, right? So all of our data centers are not hosted on public clouds, right? We host it in data center location around the globe, right? We have full compute at every of our data center location, right? And we basically peer with all the tier 1 telcos globally in all our data centers to give you accelerated access, right? The shortest path to the application the user is trying to access, as well as we are also peering directly with all the major cloud service provider like Microsoft, Google, Salesforce, Amazon, right? So they are peered at every of our data center location. So, right, like I mentioned, right? So we have partnership with CDNs, and we have the most network adjacencies in the world of all the security providers today. So what defines as a next generation secure web gateway, right, is to make sure that you have your SaaS and web traffic visible across a large scale application, right, with detailed metadata, granular activity control over a high speed private cloud network, and help you to control the data that follows the user, right? So basically, next generation secure gateway is all in one cloud platform or cloud gateway to basically give you full visibility and control over the user's access, right? And we can definitely help you with that, right? So this is the simplified future security architecture, right? That probably Gartner is looking at, or a lot of organizations is looking forward to. So basically, we are in the secure access cloud space, right, in the middle. And of course, it will be integrated with your identity provider, right, that does your authentication and SSO, integrated with your SIEM and SOAR, as well as your endpoint controls, right, like your endpoint EDR, right. So all of these can be integrated, right. So anything that goes out to the internet, right, we will be able to help you to secure and give you the visibility. So these are some of the example next-gen secure web gateway use cases, right? So basically, it's targeted at data, all right? Unintentional, unapproved data movement, right? Cloud-enabled SaaS and web threats, right? IP protection for internet external threats, conditional and contextual access to safely enable SaaS. So if in an organization somebody asks you, can I use this SaaS application before work, right? Of course, you have no choice but sometimes to whitelist that user to that particular application or that particular URL, right? But by whitelisting, right, you do not know exactly what they are doing, right? So with Netscope, we can actually help you to whitelist for that user, but with certain control, right? So for example, I allow you to go Dropbox, right? Because my business partner sent me certain things through Dropbox I need to access that particular file that they sent across. So with Netscope, I can now say that I allow you to access Dropbox, to download files, and I'll scan for malware. But if you try to upload any sensitive files, I actually block you from uploading, right? And of course, lastly, all right, we want to basically help you and enable you and your employees to work from anywhere with a secure and fast experience, right? So Netscope Security Cloud basically consists of a few modules, right? So what I have talked about is mainly the next-gen secure web gateway, right? We do have the CASP, traditional CASP API, right? We have public cloud security, which is a CSPM module, right? And of course, private access, right? Which is a zero trust network access or application-based VPN. So all of these in the same platform, single console, single UI, and then we can also integrate with other security providers as well, right? Your single sign-on, IAM, your EDR, SIEM/SOAR, your SD-WAN, MDM, and we can also do Intel threat Intel sharing as well, right? So in a snapshot, all of these services that we have are actually backed by all our security microservices, as well as our new age private cloud network. So these are some of our global customers, right? So the ones that you might be familiar with globally is probably Visa, right? It's one of our largest financial customer. We have Starbucks, right? We have oil and gas. We have ExxonMobil, Chevron, Noble Group, right? We have Nike, Airbnb, Toyota as well, right? So these are some of our global customers globally, right? So these are some of our APAC customers as well, right? So you have people in financial, retail, manufacturing, oil and gas, etc., aviation, right? So Airbus is another of our largest customer globally as well, which has presence in a lot of countries, right? So before I go to the questions portion, right? So let me actually head to a short demo, right? So my demo has two scenarios, right? The first scenario is basically a user accessing from a BYOD, a machine that is a personal laptop, right? And I try to access my corporate Microsoft Office 365, right? So give me one. Okay. All right. So this is a personal device or personal machine, right? So I'm trying to sign into my corporate account, right? Of course, being a personal machine, you go to your own personal websites, your own account. I don't really care, right? Because your own personal. But if you actually try to log in to a corporate account, right? Like what I'm doing now, I'm trying to log into a corporate account, right? I want to basically know what you're doing, and I also want to put in certain restriction, right? So if you have IDP in place like Okta, you'll be redirected for authentication. It can be ADFS or it can be any identity provider, right? So what happens next is that once Okta has authenticated the user, right, and Okta or the IDP, what it does is basically you redirect the traffic to Netscope, right? So it's seamless, it's transparent, it's clientless or agentless to the user, right? So whatever I do now, right, in the corporate Office 365 will be monitored, and you can put in certain controls, right? So I can actually go to my Exchange Online. I can go to my OneDrive, right? My corporate OneDrive, and basically try to interact with it, right? So I can, if I create a file, I delete a file, I try to download a file, right? I will monitor you, right? So you can put certain restriction as well, right? To say that, hey, I do not want you to download any files. I can do that as well, right? For OneDrive. So if I go to my Exchange Online now, right? And let's say if I go to one of my emails, right? So my emails has some confidential files, right? So I have a policy to say that if I download any files that is tagged with secret, for example, on an unmanaged device, I do not actually allow you to download, right? So I say that the download is blocked. Please use a managed device or open the file online, right? So I can allow you to just open the file online, but I do not allow you to download the file when you are coming in from a unmanaged device, personal laptop, right? But if I download a file that is non-sensitive, I will actually allow you to download the file, right? So this is one typical scenario for unmanaged device accessing corporate sanctioned cloud application like Office 365, right? So now the second scenario, right, is basically from managed device, right? So from a managed device perspective, of course, you have full control on your managed device, right? So your managed device basically has an agent or client that is installed on the managed device, right? So this client actually do not actually take up resources at all. What it does is basically it connects the user to Netscope Cloud. It redirects the traffic to Netscope Cloud. That's all, right? It doesn't do any processing on the machine, so it's very, very, very lightweight, right? And this also helps because when the user is outside the network, right, he will always be protected with the same policies, right? And he can't disable it, right? So wherever he goes to, he'll be monitored, right? So if now I'm from a managed device perspective, right? So now if I go to, I open up a web browser. Okay, let me open up Chrome. Right, so now if I open up a web browser, right, and I now basically want to go to my corporate OneDrive, for example, right? So let's say I go to office.com, right, and my corporate account for my OneDrive Office 365 is secure access service edge.org, right? So now if I try to sign in, right, to another account, right? So let's say I try to sign to another partner account, for example, right, or I try to sign to netscope.com. Right? I can actually say that he's blocked, right? Because you're trying to access Office 365, which is not a sanctioned account. And I can say that please use sanctioned cloud app for the file transfer, right? And then I can say click here to log in, re-log in to a sanctioned cloud app, right? So now I can actually log in to my sanctioned account. Right? And then again, it'll take you to whatever IDP that you are using, right? And then you are able to log in now, right? Because it's a corporate account. So if you try to log into a non-corporate account, it will be blocked, right? So we can do that kind of granular control, right? And of course, being a managed device accessing corporate account, right? I can allow you to do anything, right? Because it's being monitored in the first place, right? And if you try to share a file, right, to somebody external, I can monitor you as well, right? So I can monitor that you're trying to share with somebody external, and I can actually block you, right? I can say that you're trying to share this file to external party, and now it has been blocked, right? Or you can do a whitelist to certain domain that is allowing the user to be shared, right? Allowing the file to be shared. So you can do that as well, right? So now maybe, okay, I want to use, I need to use Dropbox, right? Because my business partner actually sent me something via Dropbox, right? But as an organization, right, I do not want you to log into Dropbox using a non-corporate account as well, right? I do not want you to log in using a non-corporate domain. So if let's say I try to log in now with a personal account, right, I block you, right? Because you are now logging in with a personal account. So if I now sign in with a corporate account, it's fine, right? Because now you're using a corporate account to actually log into Dropbox, right? So once I log into Dropbox, of course, right, you can download any files because you need it for work, right? So I allow you to download any files that you want, right? But if let's say you have a file that contains, or somebody send you a file, right, that contains a malware, right? So if let's say I try to download a file that contains a malware, so it's my malware. Okay, so if I try to download a file, so which contains a malware file, right, I'll block you, right, because it's a malware. Okay, so if I try to upload files, right, to cloud storage, right? Not only Dropbox, it can be applied to any cloud storage or any cloud application, right? And if let's say I have a file that contains credit card number, for example, and I try to upload this file, right, that has credit card number, I'll block you, right, because it violated a policy that is related to credit card, right? So one very interesting thing I'm going to show you right now is basically uploading images that contains credit card, as well as images that is a passport and also a screenshot of a desktop, right? So this is a screenshot of a desktop, right? And if this is an image, so if I try to, let me just close this here. So if I try to upload this file that contains an image of a desktop, it's still trying to upload the previous file. Let me reload. Right? So if let's say I try to upload an image that contains a screenshot, I can monitor or I can block you, right? So if let's say I transfer a file that contains a credit card, an image that contains a credit card. Oh, I think I screwed up my policy. Give me one moment. Let me just turn off one of my policy. Okay, so let me go to another demo first. I'll come back to this in a short while, right? So the other demo is basically the zero trust network access, right? So if let's say I want to access an application, right, that is actually hosted on premise, right, I can actually do so without connecting to a VPN tunnel, right? Because Netscope can actually help you to connect the traffic together based on whether is he allowed or not, right? So this is my IP address, right? Local IP address. I'm on another network that is far away, right? And then if I want to access, let's say, a cloud application that is hosted on premise, right? I can just treat it as I'm in office, right? I can actually access that cloud application anywhere, right? Even though this machine is not in the same network, right? I'm outside office. I want to access this internal cloud storage. I can just immediately type in my browser and I can access it, right? As though as I'm in office, right? So it works for any protocol, any port, right? Including remote desktop as well, right? And I connect to this IP address or server that's back in my office, but I'm at home. So I can actually help you to connect the user to that particular, like a VPN connection, right? But without actual VPN tunnel, right? So it's seamless to the user, right? It's transparent to the user. They can actually just straight away use it if they have the permission, right? And of course, you can actually do file share as well, right? So you can basically do a file share, right, to that particular server, right? And then I can access the files there, right? So it's as though as you're in office, right? So now let me go back to the previous demo that is on the Dropbox. All right. So now let me just try it again and try to upload a file that contains credit card data. All right. It'll be blocked, right? Because it contains credit card data. I'm not allowed to upload to any cloud storage besides my corporate OneDrive, right? And now if let's say I try to upload an image, right, that contains a credit card, right? Image that contains a credit card, and I try to upload this, right? I'll block you because I'm uploading a sensitive image, right? And now if I upload another file that contains passport, right? So this is a passport image capture, right? And I try to upload this passport image. Right? Let me try that again. Passport image, right? Okay, let me try another passport. Right, so I think I screwed up my policy. So it will actually block the passport, right? If I try to upload a passport image, right? So if I try a credit card again, yeah, I think some policy issue, right? So basically, you can actually block images, right, for passport and basically credit card, right? So you can of course do the fingerprinted document as well, right? So I have a document that is already fingerprinted, and I try to upload the fingerprinted file, right? It'll be blocked, right? Because it infringed policy that is fingerprinted, right? So if let's say the user actually tries to copy certain um, information within this document, right? So there's some information here, and I actually copy the information and basically paste it, right, in a text file, right? Or I actually paste it in a Word document over here, right? It can be detected as well, right? Because it fulfills certain percentage of the fingerprinted files, right? Okay. I think it's downloading. Right, so I can also block that as well, right? If let's say I have certain fingerprinted files that actually contains that fingerprinted data, right? Right, so yeah, I think that's all for my demo, right? So to quickly show you how it looks like, right, in the dashboard. Let me share my screen. All right. So in the dashboard itself, you can basically see all the incidents, all the DLP incidents over here, right? So all the DLP incidents that is being done, that is infringed, it will show here, all right? And of course, we can basically tell you the activities of all the users that go through our platform, right? So you can see all the user activities here, including what file is it, what application they access, etc. Right? So you can see that this particular user actually upload the file that contains sensitive information. This is the domain that they use to log into Dropbox. Right? All the activities that you can see here. All the application. Right? So of course, we can help you to consolidate all the alerts, right, in a single page as well. Okay. So we also, the last thing I want to show you is basically the CCI. Right? So this CCI is actually a catalog of database, right, that we actually research on, right, and we basically will tell you if an application is a high risk application or a safe application, right? So let's say I go WeTransfer. WeTransfer is a high risk application, and why is it high risk? Is basically based on these categories, right? And we'll tell you that what kind of certification do they have, what data center standards do they have, etc. Right? And of course, the activities that we can monitor for that particular application. Right? So, right, if you need more details, right, or if you have any specific use cases, you can reach out to us. Right? We can have a one-to-one session to go more in detail, as well as more customized demo to what you are looking for. Right? So yeah, if not, I'll hand over. Thank you very much. Hi, Gunado. I'm done.
All right. Thank you, Melvin, for the presentation and the Q&A. Sorry for the demo. So Here's some question from the attendees. I'll read it for you. So the first one is from Raymond from Cahaya Benteng. He asked about the data protection for internal and external threats. What does threat means? Is it for a user threat, such as stealing data, or threats as if the virus or malware? And the second one, still referring to the first, what the system will do if the user computer have virus or malware and the user trying to connect to the cloud to access the data?
Yeah. So we can, so to answer your first question, internal external threat, it basically means that for malicious insider, right, means that the user purposely want to extract out some data to the cloud, and for accidental insider as well, right, or accidental data leakages, he or she does not know that I shouldn't upload a sensitive file to my own personal webmail or personal cloud storages, right? And of course, malware as well. If the machine infected the malware and the machine actually establish a connection to somewhere, right, to extract data, we can stop that as well, right? And the second question, right, if the machine had computer or if the computer had virus or malware, we will not know, right, if the machine has malware or not, right? But if the machine tries to connect to a CNC or a bot, we can actually help to stop that connection, right? So, or we can integrate with your on-prem, if we can integrate with your endpoint EDR, right, for automation, right? So if let's say your endpoint EDR detected that this particular endpoint has malware, you can actually tell Netscope to fail close, which means that it can't connect out before the malware is being removed. Yep.
All right. There's another question from Nodi from Infocom. What differ the Netscope from the Microsoft Cloud App Security?
Yep. So Microsoft Cloud App Security mainly only does Microsoft, right? So they only do what we call a CASB-like or CASB API, right? To basically do data at rest, right? As well as the user audit logs in Microsoft platform, right? So Microsoft Cloud App Security does not have the full enterprise DLP. That's one. They do not have the full threat capability. They only do based on threat intel as well as AV, standard AV. They are not able to say that, hey, this user actually access to Dropbox. He's trying to upload sensitive stuff to Dropbox, right? So Microsoft Cloud App Security does not do that, right? So they only do for Microsoft, right? And of course, Netscope, we also do for Microsoft, and we can do more than them as well.
All right, Pak Raymond, does that answer your question? All right, I think yes. So there's another question from Pak Priyo. How Netscope is used to handle the VoIP server?
We do not basically do anything with VoIP, right? So that is left with other providers to basically secure any VoIP traffic.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Oke, Bapak Ibu, apakah masih ada pertanyaan? Bisa langsung tulis di chat box. Kalau tidak ada, kita akan lanjut ke kuis. Susanti mungkin bisa di-show screen-nya.
Oke. Apakah sudah kelihatan?
Iya, sudah kelihatan.
Oke. Untuk link join-nya Bapak Ibu sudah saya taruh di kolom chat. Bisa langsung join di kolom chat tersebut sesuai dengan formatnya ya Bapak Ibu. Jadi ada format yang ditentukan yaitu perusahaan strip nama atau namanya strip perusahaan gitu. Jika yang ada memiliki aplikasi Quizzes juga bisa langsung join melalui enter kode join yang tertera di layar di 297704. Untuk Bapak Ibu yang ingin join, kasih waktu untuk joinnya 2 menit. Mungkin untuk Bapak Ibu yang masih belum sesuai format, boleh diulang kembali untuk join lagi sesuai dengan formatnya, perusahaan, strip nama, atau namanya seperti strip perusahaan gitu. Oke. Jam 2:57 kita mulai. Bapak Zulhusni boleh diulang Bapak sesuai dengan formatnya, yaitu nama, strip perusahaan, atau perusahaan strip namanya Bapak. Untuk saat ini sudah 31 peserta yang ikut join kuisnya. Mungkin udah menit 2:57, bisa kita start untuk kuisnya. Bagi Bapak Ibu yang ingin join, kuisnya bisa tetap join sesuai dengan formatnya ya Bapak Ibu kalau ingin menjoin. Jadi walaupun masih udah di start, masih tetap bisa join gitu. Kita start sekarang. Selamat mengerjakan. Untuk saat ini posisi 1 ditepati oleh Bapak Yunawan dari UTM. Di posisi 2 ada Bapak Arif Lukman dari CWS. Di posisi kedua juga ini skornya sama nih. Tapi karena di bawahnya kita masukin di posisi ketiga Bapak Indra Dewa Putra dari CWS. Gitu. Untuk Bapak Ibu yang sudah selesai mengerjakan kuisnya bisa dibantu untuk mengisi feedback form yang tertera di kolom chat yang telah di-share oleh Ibu Violen. Sambil menunggu teman-teman yang lainnya mengerjakan kuis ini gitu. Karena di dalam feedback form tersebut, jika mengisi feedback form dapat mendapatkan sertifikat of attendee dari webinar hari ini. Coba kita lihat, sudah banyak juga yang mengisi dan udah banyak juga yang selesai. Mungkin kita tunggu 1 menit lagi untuk kuisnya sebelum kita end game. Ya, sudah ada pergerakan lagi dari kuisnya. Mungkin bisa kita end game. Selamat kepada ketiga pemenang. Di sini di posisi pertama ada Bapak Hokyeng dari Sadana, posisi kedua ada Bapak Yunawanka dari UTM, dan posisi ketiga ada Bapak Budi dari Indolote Makmur. Selamat kepada para pemenang. Akan saya kembalikan kepada Bapak Gunawan. Silakan.
Oke, sebelumnya saya ucapkan selamat kepada Pak Hokyong dari Sadana. Dan tadi yang kedua siapa, Susanti? Pak Yunawan ya?
Yang kedua ada Bapak Yunawanka dari UTM.
Oke, selamat. Nanti akan kami kontak untuk pemberian gift voucher atas memenangkan kuis ini. Untuk datanya ini kami akan ambil dari feedback form yang Bapak Ibu akan isi. Nanti feedback form yang Bapak isi nanti akan kami koordinasi untuk pemberian voucher GrabFood juga seperti itu. Jadi mohon diisi dengan sebenar-benarnya. Linknya sudah ada di chat box seperti itu. Oke, mungkin kita akan tunggu 2 menit lagi untuk pengisian feedback form. Baik, dengan selesainya rundown pada acara webinar MII dengan Netscope pada siang hari ini, kami ucapkan banyak terima kasih kepada Bapak Ibu teman-teman customer MII sudah meluangkan waktu untuk mendengarkan seminar ini. Apabila ada pertanyaan, jangan sungkan untuk dapat kontak kami seperti itu. Terima kasih.